Cosmodore was a former YouTuber who was known for his videos about cartoon film and animation reviews. He was well liked from within the animation and cartoon community for his videos, and was slowly but surely gaining an audience of his own loyal subscribers. All of that would change in July of 2020, when he would get exposed for being in a relationship with a 15-year-old when he was 19, and things would snowball from then on out. Before we get into his downfall, however, we first need to go over his initial growth on YouTube. Cosmodore would make his channel on December 17th of 2013, but wouldn't upload his first video until a little under 4 years later on December 14th of 2017. The video would set the tone for the type of content that he would make, mainly consisting of obscure film and TV show reviews, similar to other cartoon YouTubers at the time. They were your typical informative review essay type videos, mixed with some good editing and a clear premise, making them easy to watch and kept people engaged throughout the entire watch time. And if there's one thing that YouTube likes, it's keeping a high viewer retention rate on their videos, because the more a person watches a video, the more ads they see, and the more money that Google makes. Cosmodore had a knack for making videos on subjects that were popular while still keeping things fresh to a certain extent. His every SpongeBob episode ranked series first comes to mind. I mean, bro, it's SpongeBob. You know it's gonna pull in views no matter what. You can tell early on that Cosmodore knew exactly how to bring in viewers and keep them watching his videos. He hit his stride very early on in his career with the video, oh yeah, Kid vs. Cat was a thing, and soon found a formula where he would find obscure but relatively remembered cartoons and review them. I'd argue this was his most memorable series on the channel, as I personally remember running to the Kid vs. Cat video a year or two ago, not sticking around but still being entertained by the fact that someone else remembered a show that I enjoyed as a kid. Cosmodore also had a desire to be seen by other online content creators, as with any new person trying to make a career for themselves on YouTube. What I found interesting is that one of the first people that Cosmodore became friends with was none other than Turkey Tom. He even says so himself.
The funny, weird thing about Cosmo is, I was, the first person in the community that he, ever met, even before he knew, any of the big cartoon
Oh, God.
back in the day.
Shitting on you, Tom. It was pretty...
No, I know he hated me after the fact.
Of course, by making friends with a well-known and respected YouTuber, he was able to bring a lot more attention to himself and meet more and more people behind the scenes. People would hear of this new content creator, pull up his channel, and find someone relatively new to the scene pulling in great views and building a fan base with good content. To put it simply, Cosmodore's channel was off to a fantastic start. If you were in the cartoon community around 2018-2019, you were bound to hear Cosmodore's name be brought up every now and then. Along with making these videos on obscure but memorable topics, he was popping up all over the place. He would appear in multiple podcasts such as the Pizza Party podcast.
In terms of the short film, you should just force yourself to do one take. Just,
Yeah.
if you mess up, it
No,
doesn't
I
matter.
should.
If
I
you don't
should.
have time, just force them to do one take. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll make sure of it.
Collab with a multitude of creators, so many I can't even name them all, and even got his own guest spot on Did You Know Gaming. To make it short, he was everywhere. You could not go anywhere on YouTube without seeing something to do with this guy in a video, and used all of his connections that he built up to the fullest he possibly could. He not only worked hard, but worked very smart, and along with being known as a pretty alright guy at the time, it seemed that he had everything going his way and was ready to take over the cartoon and animation side of YouTube. Nothing could stop him, and with every passing day he would keep growing and growing, with very little sign of slowing down. But little did anybody know, there would soon be some drama that would show a much different side to the man, and looking back in retrospect, was a huge red flag for everyone to see. Now we all know that Turkey Tom and Cosmodore were friends at one point, but it soon soured out. Some people assume it's because Tom started to shift into more commentary type videos, and it was just one of those friendships that fizzled out due to making different types of content. While there are other theories out there as to why their friendship ended, Tom himself clarified what happened, and it was different than people expected.
Yo, you hear me?
He hated me because before I knew that they were even in a relationship, him and the victim, I had shit on her in a call or something. I think I called her a cunt in a call or something a few years ago, because I was like, she did something dumb. But this was years later, but he was still mad at me, and
Interesting.
I had forgotten to credit her in one of my descriptions, and he messaged me and he was like,
That was
"I'm mad at you." Yeah, it is kind of weird,
Yeah.
you know. Down the drain. Go fuck yourself, Cosmodore.
Yeah, it seems like Tom didn't credit the person Cosmodore was dating and called her a bunch of names, so Cosmodore just straight up called the friendship over at that point. Sounds kinda petty, but it is what it is. There were some other things that Cosmodore also did, like during a point in time where he was on good terms with another cartoon animation YouTuber named TheAlphaJayShow. There was a bit of Twitter drama in which AlphaJ saw Cosmodore in a much different light. He would become a lot more vocal about his displeasures with the person behind closed doors, but would keep up his facade of being nice to the person in public as to not really start anything. Eventually, AlphaJ and Cosmodore's friendship fell apart. It soon became apparent that Cosmodore would talk mad shit about AlphaJ behind his back to other creators, basically slandering AlphaJ's name in the process. Cosmodore was talking so much shit about AlphaJ to other creators that those other creators started to kind of shift away from AlphaJ, and when AlphaJ found that out, he was very, very upset about it. AlphaJ was literally struggling to make friends with other like-minded creators because Cosmodore would go to those people and basically just lie about AlphaJ to them, and they would think, oh, AlphaJ's an awful person, why would I want to associate with him? These kind of interactions are sadly really common these days on the internet, but is still nonetheless very important to understand about Cosmodore's character. He was seen as a go-lucky, all-around nice guy on the surface, but it looks like he was a real piece of shit behind the scenes, much to the dismay of the people that got to know him better. Things would only get worse for Cosmodore from here on out, as there is one particular situation that happened that left a sour taste in many people's mouths once they figured it out. Around early 2019, YouTuber LS Mark became really good friends with Cosmodore. They would interact with each other online a lot, cameo in a lot of each other's videos, and even had a joint Discord server together where people would draw fan art of the two. On the surface, and for a while in private, it was just another example of two YouTubers becoming really good friends with each other and enjoying being around one another. Nobody would think anything much of their friendship beyond just that, a typical really good online friendship. However, what was kept secret from many people, including LS Mark himself, was that Cosmodore was having romantic feelings for him during their friendship. LS Mark would catch wind of this and would ask Cosmodore himself about it to clarify things between each other, and Cosmodore said while that he did have a thing for him, he wasn't certain if it was out of just being really good friends with him, or if he truly had romantic feelings for LS Mark. Basically, Cosmodore was just someone who was confused about their feelings toward another person. It's something normal for people to deal with, so at the time it wasn't seen as anything particularly bad, but in hindsight, this should have been a huge red flag, as what you're about to hear next really takes things to a level that is just kinda disturbing. I would like to point out that LS Mark was 17 at the time when they had their conversation, but they were both over the age of consent in their respective countries, so wasn't really seeing anything further beyond that. Where shit really hit the fan was about a month later when Cosmodore, LS Mark, and another YouTuber named Steve Reviews all decided to meet up and go to a concert of the band Crush 40 in the UK, known for their music in the Sonic video games, in which LS Mark is a massive fan of. Steve lived in the UK so he could just take a train over, whereas Cosmodore and LS Mark had to travel over and stay in a hotel together. Where things get very suspect is that according to another YouTuber named Bedhead Bernie, Cosmodore accidentally got a hotel room with only one bed instead of two.
Then he goes there, he arranges the hotel, he gets only one bed, one king-size bed, right?
Oh my god.
He pretends it's an accident. When Mark is uncomfortable, he's like, I can sleep on the floor. And then he's like, I'll get another bed. It's like, doesn't happen. So
now you might be thinking to yourself, well, this is just a simple mistake. This has happened before, you know. You're told this room might have two beds, ends up being one, or that's the only room they had available. But this was a whole month after Cosmodore told his feelings to LS Mark. So the notion that this was an innocent mistake was, well, let's just say that it was thrown out the window right then and there. This was very, very creepy of Cosmodore to do, and completely ruined their friendship altogether, with the two literally cutting ties from then on out. Even though there were only 3 instances of Cosmodore cutting ties with people at this point in time, one of them out of pettiness, one of them ruining a friendship and slandering the person, and the other because of being extremely creepy, he was still seen in a good light. These issues were behind the scenes and somewhat personal, and they weren't public for any viewers of the 3 channels to see, so most people assumed that the falling outs are simply like any other friendship you may have. Just some people moving in different directions in their lives. The cartoon and animation community liked the guy, considered him a good friend, and trusted him, but little did anybody expect that trust would soon be broken. On July 27th, 2020, Cosmodore would put out a community post on his YouTube channel telling everyone that when he was 19, he dated a 15-year-old. This post came seemingly out of nowhere, as there were no rumors floating around like this on the internet. It was like a slap to the face to all of his subscribers. Now, of course, there's only one reason to come out about this news when nobody knew beforehand. Cosmodore was trying to get the first step on everybody to control the situation so it wouldn't get any worse than it possibly could. Newsflash, it didn't work. He claimed that he knew the relationship was wrong, yet still dated them up until the other person ended the relationship. He even says in the post that they were the one who ultimately broke things off with me. Although I did already break up with them once at that point in order to artificially make it so they'd want nothing to do with me. Basically, the other person broke up with him, but he's making it seem as if he broke up with them first in order to look like the bigger person or something. This, of course, wasn't the case, as the main message was quite clear to everybody. Cosmodore had been dating somebody underage, and we all know how people are going to react to that news on the internet. One by one, cartoon animation creators on YouTube started to publicly disavow Cosmodore, doing the typical statements how they don't condone his actions, with some even taking down their collaboration videos with him entirely. People that Cosmodore had worked close with, become friends with, and even made videos with were all cutting ties off with him, and sooner than later it became Cosmodore versus the world. The information that transpired afterwards, however, is when the situation got to levels nobody could imagine. Now, before we go any further, we must first take a look into the history of the first victim. She initially got her start on the internet and YouTube in the cartoon animation scene by making fan animations and fan art. Known for working with notable YouTubers like Turkey Tom, she made character stills for Turkey Tom, which is how she got into contact with Cosmodore, as at the time him and Turkey Tom were still on good terms with each other. Cosmodore had an interest in her, and since she was only 15 years old and couldn't really understand the issues behind this, they started to date each other. One thing that came to mind while researching this video was I took a look at things from the victim's perspective as to why they started dating in the first place. Most people would say it was mainly out of naivety for them being so young, but think about it this way. Imagine being a 15-year-old who makes fan art for YouTubers and other people that you admire, and for one of them to want to date you. It's a perfect situation to her, and since she was so young, she didn't understand the age gap as being that big of a deal. And Cosmodore didn't care enough about the age gap to think to himself, this is very wrong of him to do. The relationship also had a bit of a business aspect to it, as she drew the character stills for him and even made his character ref sheet entirely. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't really have the Cosmodore character to begin with. Now, the news breaks out, people cut Cosmodore off, and now he's in a very big controversy because he dated someone underage. Remember, he was 19 and she was 15, so by people's standards this was very wrong and illegal. Where things would start to take a strange turn in direction is how Cosmodore would tell his audience that the German age of consent law is 14 and older, as he was living in Germany. Most people would take his word for it, as if you Google the German age of consent, 14 does come up as the answer. However, doing a little more research shows that Cosmodore was straight up wrong, as the 14 and up rule only applies to 2 individuals who are between the ages of 14 and 18. In other words, so long as the 2 people were between the ages of 14 and 18, they could legally date by German law. Cosmodore was 19 and the victim was 15, making this relationship illegal by Cosmodore's own country's standards, the one he used to initially defend himself with. Cosmodore would go on to keep using this as the standard of the relationship, purposefully not taking into account the fact that the victim didn't even live in Germany like him, but in America, adding yet another layer to this giant mess. I remember thinking to myself, the only reason someone would go this far to defend themselves usually means that they're in the wrong and just looking for any sort of legal loophole they could find to get themselves out of the situation. Nonetheless, things were still ramping up as more and more people learned of the situation, and it would slowly snowball from here on out. In some of the messages between Cosmodore and the victim, he would send her lewd images of drawings. He even said in his initial confession that he would send Rule 34, but we all know it's just a better sounding way to say lewd images. What is so bitterly funny about this entire situation is that while he tries to defend their relationship being legal, I don't think he ever took into account that sending lewd images to anyone under the age of 18 in Germany, his country, is illegal. There's not a doubt in my mind that he purposefully left this information out, as this was the smoking gun in the whole case. Everything else was a little nuanced to it, but this right here was literally the, yeah, Cosmodore is guilty card. Beforehand, one could try to argue the relationship was just an age thing, but like I said, you can't argue against the law. Cosmodore had committed a crime, and there was no way for him to defend himself from this. The rabbit hole goes even deeper, as there is proof of Cosmodore manipulating the victim during their relationship and even stalking her after their breakup. There are screenshots showing how he would do the classic bait and switch method on her just to cause her grief, because if he wasn't in a good mood or having things his way, he would pout about it like a child. Soon after their official breakup, he would start stalking her by making alternate Twitter and Discord accounts, at one point trying to sympathy bait her into forgiving him, which she did not take lightly. He would even talk to other content curators under these alt accounts trying to get into contact with her, and was basically watching her every online move with a very close eye. Take a moment to think about it. A 19-year-old, now 20, is stalking a 15-year-old because they broke up their relationship. Not only is he stalking an underage girl, imagine the mental strain that she was put under. At any moment in time, Cosmodore could have been using an alt account to stalk her, try to contact her on any of the social media pages, which causes a lot of stress and paranoia for somebody that young. How sad can somebody be? Seriously, think about it. You have a 19-year-old grown man stalking a 15-year-old teenager, making a bunch of alternate accounts just to try to get in contact with them again. It's so sad and pathetic, it's honestly laughable at this point, just to try to see him wiggle his way around to get into contact with her again. After he broke up with the 15-year-old, Cosmodore did get into a relationship, a legal one mind you, with a woman around his age. Not much is known about the relationship itself, but it is known that she knew of Cosmodore's prior relationship with the 15-year-old, but was told by him that it wasn't sexual, so she didn't think much of it. Once she found out that he sent those lewd images of drawings to her, their relationship immediately fell apart, and she got into contact with the 15-year-old and encouraged her to speak out. That's the only reason Cosmodore got exposed in the first place. Nobody would have known about the relationship if it wasn't for this unknown woman encouraging the 15-year-old to speak up about her experience with Cosmodore and to tell everybody that, yeah, this grown adult was dating a 15-year-old teenager, me. If it wasn't for Cosmodore getting into another relationship, we probably would have never known about this, and he would have just gone on with his life with nobody knowing about the true man that he really is. What makes things get so much worse is how badly Cosmodore would handle the situation once it started. Cosmodore first made people aware of the relationship on December 11th of 2019 in a Twitter post where he tells everybody that he was dating a 15-year-old when he was 19. This post is very meticulously written as to shift as much potential blame off him, and even comes off with the impression that he broke off the relationship after finding out the age of the girl. This is completely 100% false, as we will find out later that he already knew her age, and he would even lie to his fans responding to the initial tweet, saying that he didn't know her age until after getting with her. And of course, to put icing on the cake, he'd eventually delete the tweet soon after making it, meaning only a very small handful of his subscribers would even see the post, and those that bothered to comment and ask were told he didn't know the age until after, giving the impression that he was in the green and that he was innocent. As we all know by now, however, this couldn't have been further from the truth. On July 18th, 2020, Cosmodore would post a video called "Taking an Extended Break from YouTube," explaining how he was getting burnt out and tired of constantly working on videos and wanted to basically chill for a bit. In reality, he made this video because of the looming threat of the victim coming out and making their former relationship known to the public, and was trying to get ahead of the curve. A little over a week later, on July 27th of 2020, he would make a community post telling everybody that he was in a relationship with a 15-year-old when he was 19, how their relationship was, trying to paint himself as a victim in some way, and seemingly taking responsibility at the same time, all while saying that he got toxic at times, and that the lewd drawings he sent were nothing more than just Rule 34, basically trying to downplay the situation as much as he can. Cosmodore thought to himself that if he would have come out with the news first that he could control the narrative or whatever, the newsflash, yeah, that didn't really work out at all. The community post is honestly disgusting to read, because you can tell that Cosmodore tried his very hardest to make sure every little detail either implies or straight up denounces that he did anything wrong. There is no remorse to be found when reading between the lines, just somebody who thought they had the upper hand by coming out with the news first. Despite the effort to paint himself in a good light, he was shunned by the rest of the cartoon community, and things would only get worse for him from then on out. One by one, people were denouncing him on Twitter and YouTube, saying that they're not going to affiliate with him anymore, the typical stuff you would hear because the dude was dating an underage girl. And only a few days later, YouTuber Daft Pino would make a video on the entire situation up to that point, showing how Cosmodore was trying to craft a narrative that he was innocent, when in reality that was far from the truth. The strangest thing to happen in the video though is not the video itself, but a comment that Cosmodore left on it which he soon deleted. He says how a relationship with a high gap was normal for him, giving the example of a 13-year-old and a 32-year-old man dating, which is, I mean, come on dude, like, you cannot be for real. The only reason someone would even use this argument is if they're guilty and just grasping at straws at that point. He even says that sending Rule 34 images to a minor isn't grooming when it clearly is, but does admit that he understood the severity of what he did and that it was best for him to leave the internet and leave his entire YouTube and internet career behind. Cosmodore was torn apart in a matter of days, going from a well-known and respected figure in the cartoon community to just another person caught dating underage people, and was soon lumped in with a bunch of other former content creators turned groomers. All the countless hours spent editing, scripting, working, the friendships that he made, gone in a snap, and will go on to be remembered as yet another example of a YouTuber using their platform for sickening things. Oh, I bet y'all thought this video was over, huh? Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that. Check the timestamp, we still got plenty to go over, because unfortunately for everyone, Cosmodore wasn't gonna leave the internet that easily. On August 4th of 2020, Cosmodore would post a couple of stories on his YouTube channel, which gave a bit of insight into the mental state that he was in.
You don't know what it's like to just have everyone you looked up to and were peers with abandon you. Cut you out entirely. I got no one.
As you can tell, he doesn't sound like he's exactly in a very good mood, and really it just comes off as sympathy bait for people to feel sorry for him. Despite saying earlier that he knew it was best for him to leave YouTube and his internet career behind, he decided that he still wanted one, as he would go on to release review videos as if nothing was happening, with the one about Welcome to the NHK anime being the most interesting. The anime is about a lonesome 22-year-old trying to escape his bedroom, with a lot of hints of depression being a main overarching theme. The anime itself delves into psychological themes and stuff, and is generally good from the little I've seen myself, but you know what isn't good? Comparing yourself to the main character trying to get sympathy from people.
Until 2 years later, and with every possible mistake I could have made in my time on YouTube crossed off the list, I can wholly identify with this loner character stuck in his room, without my life going anywhere, having pushed away the people closest to me.
I still can't wrap my head around the fact that he made this video. He sees the anime, writes the script about it, makes the video on it, uploads it to YouTube, and then makes it public. And never did he think to himself, maybe people might see past me sympathy baiting. As you can tell, the video was obviously sympathy bait, and it's very easy to see that. According to Cosmodore himself, he was recommended to keep making videos by his therapist and was simply listening to them, but it doesn't take much to put two and two together. An anime review about a lonesome 22-year-old whose life is going nowhere, having no friends or anything working in his favor, not to mention comparing himself to that same exact character. It was just another attempt to gain sympathy from good-hearted people. A couple of months later, on December 8th of 2020, Cosmodore released a video titled A Proper Response, in which he would apologize to AlphaJ, all while trying to sound emotional and remorseful about everything that's been going on. Basically, even more sympathy baiting from him again. He talks about how he met the victim, and it just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth listening to the audio, because it sounds like he's still in love with her, which is just It's creepy, man.
Knowledge that there may be something wrong with the relationship between a then 19 and this 15-year-old. Because at that point I had already fallen for this person and tried really hard to be with them. I would go days without going online to somehow get them to notice me. I would ask around their friends if they felt about me the same way, and it worked. We started dating. This was all online, by the way, and
while this video isn't the worst response video that he's made, this was the first instance of people understanding that Cosmodore wasn't gonna go out with a fight, despite not only him himself saying earlier that it's best for him to leave. He obviously doesn't want to lose all that he's worked for, but by this point people already knew the guy was bad business, they just wanted him gone off of the internet. Other YouTube channels started to pick up on the situation as it began to grow more and more, spreading the word surrounding Cosmodore and bringing the situation beyond just the cartoon community. This was when I first heard about the drama myself, as I was just dipping my toes into the internet and content creation and whatnot, and I already knew that this dude was bad news. Sucks because I really liked some of his videos too. At one point he was even interviewed by 2 people, which it really isn't that interesting. It's nothing new, just an hour-long interview and sympathy baiting and whatnot. You guys already know what the deal is. What is interesting, however, is when he released a new video on April 19th of 2021 titled Defending Myself, in which he doesn't do a very good job living up to that title. In the video, he uses how Germany's age of consent makes their relationship legal, but fails to take into account that only he lives in Germany and the victim lives in America. I can confidently say this was purposeful to make him look in a better light, because he talks a lot about cultural differences and how people try to force their own upon him. I found it a little ironic because while he's complaining about people forcing their beliefs upon him, he's trying to force his belief upon us, but hey, you know what? Anything to do to defend yourself. One thing I also found quite hilarious is the fact that he uses the YouTube age analytics to show that most of his viewers aren't kids when, guys, let's be real about this, that is not a very good way to back up that claim. More and more talks about cultural differences, a legal threat against Daft PETA, and you can get the idea where the rest of this video is gonna go. Cosmodore doesn't seem to understand that cultural differences don't mean shit in the end, and then to imply a legal threat against the very person who made a lot of people aware of the situation to begin with, let's just say that it doesn't really help with Cosmodore's case whatsoever. The dude complains about the commentary community at one point, but just states the obvious about how they get things wrong all the time because if there's anything you want to get across, commentary community equal bad. The rest of the video is basically Cosmodore trying to put his foot down and set the record straight in a very antagonistic way, which as you might have expected, did not bide very well with everybody keeping up with the drama. This video could not have gone worse. Not only was Cosmodore in a lot of drama because, you know, dating an underage girl, but trying to be antagonistic and sound very smug about the way you talk, like you're the one in the right. People don't like that, and he didn't seem to understand that, or he did understand that and just didn't care at this point, because the most important thing to Cosmodore is to get that YouTube career back and running no matter what. The only thing people got from this video was that everything Cosmodore had said prior was completely thrown out the window. There's a shift in his tone, going from an apologetic person that got caught to a man that doesn't give a shit anymore and completely went mask off on everybody that caused his downfall. The video honestly is funny to watch because it completely tears down everything that he had built up trying to defend himself and potentially getting his career back on track. Everything that Cosmodore had done to defend himself doesn't come out of remorse. It's him just looking for the best possible way to wiggle out of the situation that he found himself in. When someone brings up laws and legal stuff, while yes is understandable to a certain point, it usually means that the person is grasping for straws, and in this case, tells people more than enough about Cosmodore and his true intentions with these apology videos. Things wouldn't get any better from here on out, as on May 6th of 2021, Cosmodore will put out a community post on his YouTube channel stating that he'd done it again. He another minor. The final nail in the coffin had already been put in. At this point, it was just taking the nail gun and shooting at random to see whatever sticks. This instance was worse than before, as he states that things got sexual between the two of them. Whether this means that he did the deed or simply sent pictures is unknown, but one thing is for certain, it was over for him. In the video before, we saw a man so confident in his words and trying to defend himself, looking so satisfied with what he has said, only for him to go ahead and do exactly what he said he wouldn't do anymore. If anything, anyone had even a little sympathy or hope that he could come back and fix himself, it was more than certainly gone by this point. Cosmodore would go on to release 2 more videos, the first one on June 23rd of 2021 being a giant rambling mess of him basically sorry for himself, but was soon unlisted as the video didn't really serve its purpose. The second video would come out on July 17th of 2021, with Cosmodore actually sounding like he finally understands the ramifications of his actions and what he had done. By this point though, it was too little too late, as communities beyond just the cartoon community wanted him gone off the internet. It had already been a little under a year of a constant cycle of making a bad apology, deleting it, then making another bad apology video. People were sick of the man, and it seems that he finally understands the message, as there has been no more news since the video came out. The rise and fall of Cosmodore is something that was just astounding to research. Here we have a man who was very talented at making YouTube videos and was quickly rising to the top of the cartoon community, but everything would come crashing down when people found out he took advantage of an underage girl for his own satisfaction. He tried again and again to apologize, but people wanted nothing to do with him. They just wanted him gone. What looked to be a nice guy on the surface ended up being a much darker person on the inside, and we watched his entire downfall in real time in front of our very own eyes. His internet career is looking to be over for good, but given his track record, don't be surprised if he tries to make a comeback yet again. Tell me in the comments who do you like a video on next, make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, with all of that out of the way, I will see you guys later.